Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and today I'm coming to you with a video that honestly I was not expecting to make, or make this soon anyway. But I want to talk about all of the misinformation and fear-mongering, and also answer some frequently asked questions that I have been getting about the ATF Pistol Brace Amnesty, which I guess is going on right now, this big rule change. Now, I know that everybody is up in arms, everybody is upset, and I wanted to talk about it. And I made a video over on my B channel, the Texas Gun Vault 2, about how I want to figure out this process and give people the best information possible to help them decide what they want to do, depending on which track and answer to this that they want to pursue. So I mentioned in that video that I went ahead and filled out the form to Amnesty register this AR-15 pistol right here. Now it's chambered in 9mm, and I mentioned in that video that I made this gun from a bunch of parts I had lying around. So I'm not really that invested in it. I've had this gun for, I don't know, maybe about 4 or 5 years. And it's not a gun that I have any nostalgia over. And so I thought, you know, what's the harm? If everything goes south and they have to come confiscate the gun, well, I'm not out a gun that I really honestly care about. But if it goes well, I wanted to share that information with everybody and say, hey, you know, I know there's all this fear-mongering, but for me, I had no problems. Or maybe there's something in between. They contacted me and they needed some more information, and I was able to provide it or not provide it. And so you guys can decide, well, is that going to change your mind on what outcome you want to pursue? So I was really kind of doing this to help the gun community. And it really kind of surprised me, the overwhelming number of views and comments I got on these videos. And it was a lot of people that were spouting misinformation that they were getting from other firearms channels. And sometimes it was the commenter's own misunderstanding of what the NFA really is. I know there's a lot of misunderstanding about the registration. What does it really mean if you have an NFA item registered to you? Can the ATF just come anytime they want and knock on your door and inspect your paperwork? Or what about engraving and serial numbers? And I got all these questions. And so I was getting misinformation from all sides, from where other YouTube channels were spouting off information. Maybe it was just because they don't understand the process themselves and they want to drive views to their channel and they want to get everybody all panicked, or it was people that honestly don't understand the system. They hear keywords or special words and they think, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. So I guess I really need to make this video. Now, so I mentioned I did Amnesty register this gun, or I filled out the forms online through the ATF e-form system. And so I mentioned I wanted to do this for an educational exercise for you. So I have a couple of things I want to say before we dive into what I know, what I think. I want to address a couple things. Now, I made myself a little script here, and normally I don't do that with my videos. I talk off the cuff, but I got so much that I need to talk about, I had to do this. So I want to say first and foremost that just because I filled out the forms for this, it does not mean that I think this is a good ruling at all. I think that the ATF has a constitutional overreach here. They don't have the legal authority to redefine this pistol brace as a stock. That's my personal opinion. However, they have. So I'm dealing with the reality in which I live. So just like you, if you own a gun like this, you're going to have to make some decisions. Now, you may disagree with the tact that I have taken on this, or the way that I have approached this, saying I'll try this out, see what happens. So I want to say first and foremost, if you disagree with me, that is perfectly fine. And I welcome your comments, and I also understand where you're coming from. However, there's a couple of things that I'm not going to put up with here on the channel, and that is going to be name calling. So if you want to accuse me of being a federal agent, whatever, you can go back and see all of my videos that I've been making for a long time, and all of my statements where I say that pretty much all gun laws are unconstitutional. But then if you want to get into disparaging remarks by calling me a potato head, or saying I'm a bootlicker or a cuck or whatever you want to say, I'm just going to ban you from the channel and delete your comment. However, if you do have some type of constructive comment that disagrees with me, that is perfectly fine. But if you get into the name calling or you refer to me in the third person, because I always read and respond to all of the comments on these videos, I'll just ban you, okay? Now, I do want to talk about why I did this, because I'm pretty familiar with the NFA system. I mentioned that this is not my first rodeo, so I know the system pretty well. I've been collecting NFA items for, I don't know, 10, 11, or 12 years. I remember when I bought my first silencer, and I don't own just 1 or 2 items. This is actually my paperwork that I keep around for my NFA collection. And as you can see here, I have a lot of tax stamps. I mean, a lot of tax stamps. I've done things as an individual. I've done things as a trust. I have Form 1, I've Form 4'd. I even have a Form 5. I filled out a Form 20 when it came to when I moved places and having to transport firearms. I've pretty much done it all. I have over 40 tax stamps, and right now in the system I have 5 that are pending. I'm just an NFA collector. Now, you can disagree with the NFA and think that you'll never buy one or don't want one. That's perfectly fine. But the reason I'm showing you this is because I want you to believe that I have some type of knowledge or experience in this. This isn't just a fly-by-night thing. I don't own any NFA items, and I'm just like, I'm just going to register this because of whatever reason. I'm like, well, if they Amnesty register this, I have another SBR, whoop-de-doo, on a gun I really don't care too much about, but it's just another SBR that I would have. If it gets rejected, as I said, I'll have to deal with whatever the consequences are about that. But I do know the system. I do know what they're looking for. I filled out the forms many, many, many times, and I've been successful because I've gotten so many approvals. So as I mentioned, that's what I know about the NFA and why I wanted to do this. I don't think it would be wise for somebody that has never done this before to make a video like this, because they don't know how to navigate these waters. So now I also want to talk about many of the comments that I know that I'm going to get in the comments section below, and they're going to be like, Mullah Lobby, I will never comply. And I want you guys to know that I support you 150%. That I believe that you are big boys and big girls and can make your own decisions. But just because I choose to go one path and be a rebel within the system, meaning I don't agree with it, I donate to organizations that are going to fight this, but maybe working within the system to reform the system might be the way to go, instead of just being revolutionary and I will not comply and so forth and talk about how big you are. But I want to talk about that, because I find this to be a very silly argument. I know there's a lot of people out there that are keyboard warriors, and they're probably already frantically typing right now, telling me how I'm a bad person or whatever, and they'll never comply. Well, first off, if you're smart and you don't plan on complying, why would you type on a YouTube channel or a Rumble channel where big tech can essentially give your information to big government? And they're going to like, well, this person says they're not going to comply. Well, we know who they are and where they live. Let's go give them a visit. People that aren't going to comply aren't going to comply. But also, you've already complied. If you have a gun with a pistol brace, you've already complied. If you didn't comply, you would have already thrown on a stock and didn't care. You would have milled out your AR-15s to be machine guns if you didn't comply. If you have a license to carry or a concealed carry weapons license in your state and followed the law, you've complied. If you've ever bought a gun at a gun show or gun shop and filled out an ATF 4473 form, you know, the basic form we all have to fill out when you buy a gun, you've complied. If you don't take your gun into a place that the state says is a sensitive location, such as a church or a school or whatever your local laws are, you've complied. You've been doing a lot of complying. So when you say you won't comply, I think you really got to put up or shut up and be honest with yourself. You comply with a lot. Now, I'm not saying you're a bad person if you've complied, but don't give me that whole jargon in the below saying, I won't comply, when actually you're out there complying a whole bunch. But as I said, I respect and I support you. You are free to do as you want. I am a libertarian, and I need to make this clear because apparently some people don't know what a libertarian is. I am not a liberal. I'm a libertarian. I believe in very, very small government, but I also believe you as an individual have all the rights, all the God-given rights that you have as long as you don't impede upon the rights of others. So I'm even way more conservative, in my opinion, than conservatives because I believe in very, very small government. I believe we have ultimate freedom. So I'm not a liberal. So you can do whatever it is you want. I just hope that you understand the consequences of your decisions and have thought them out. And that's why I am making this video. Now, I also feel that many are upset at this new ruling because of fear-mongers on YouTube and misinformation. And that is because, as I said, there's a lot of channels out there that are maybe run by lawyers. And by the way, I am not an attorney. I'm not a lawyer. Don't take anything I say as legal advice. Now, if you watch this video and you Amnesty register one of your pistols because of this video and only because of this video, I think you're stupid. But also, I think if you don't comply because you watch another video and you're completely influenced by them, you're also stupid. I think what you need to do is get the information that I present, get the information that maybe people in the middle are presenting, and then get information on the other side where they're like, never comply, it's a big trap. Take all of that in and then think for yourself. But many channels out there drive a lot of traffic to their channels because they want views. They're going to fearmonger. They want you to think that the ATF is going to come to your door, burn your house down, kill your dog, kill you, just because you tried to amnesty register this and for whatever reason it's denied or the rule changes or now they know what you have or you're put on some type of list or whatever. There's so much fear-mongering out there, and I want to talk about that. As I said, I've been in the NFA world for a long time and have a lot of NFA regulated devices, so I want to share that with you. Okay, so let's talk about the pistol registration and why I registered this or filled out the form before the official rule was published. Well, I was able to on the ATF e-form system, and the reason I wanted to do this once again was for information. I felt that if I waited until the rule was officially published, even though you could do this on the ATF e-form system, they had already opened it up, well, I would be late to the game. I wouldn't be able to get all of the information out to you. I was hoping that if I started this process early enough, whether it goes good, neutral, or bad, I could get all of the information to you before you have to act on this. Once again, I was doing this for you, for no other reasons except to educate you guys. And as I said here, I want to keep you guys updated. If they contact me asking for more information, I will let you know. Now, when I filled out the Form 1, I already submitted pictures of the engraving on this, a picture of the firearm, because some people said the ATF was going to ask for pictures. So there's a place when you're submitting the form to provide that information. If you want, I went ahead and did it. As I said, I wasn't too worried. I've done it in the past with other registrations, Form 1s, where maybe something that was on the receiver was not very clear or was a model they didn't have in their system, and they've asked me for pictures in the past, and then ultimately I did get approved. So submitting pictures with the Form 1 is something that is very, very common. And as I mentioned here, yes, this is a cheap gun. One of the reasons I wanted to try it out on this particular gun is I have no real feelings about it. If I lost this gun, I wouldn't cry. If I sold this gun eventually, I wouldn't worry about it. This is not something that I think is very special. Now, I've also found it funny that many people in the comment section said, you're stupid for even owning a gun that's made of cheap parts like that. As I said, I just threw it together, and they're like, you must be some type of cheapskate. Well, I can tell you, I have a pretty nice collection. Just an example of another gun that I have that I'm going to talk about a little bit more. Here we have an SP5K. This one is registered on a Form 1 as an SBR. And just parts of this gun are worth more than this gun. The bolt carrier, the bolt, things that are really expensive from HK cost more than this gun. So just the fact that I own this and have SBR'd this pretty much means that I'm probably not a cheapskate, and I know what I'm talking about when it comes to guns. All right, so let's talk about some frequently asked questions, because once again, in the comments section of those videos, I was getting a ton of questions, some of it coming from the fearmongers that are like, 922R, which is the first thing I want to talk about, because everyone's like, oh my God, it says that if your gun is not 922R compliant and it had a brace on it and you try to register it, they're going to know it. They're going to come to your house and they're going to kill you, kill your dog, burn it down, confiscate it because it broke 922R. Well, let's talk about 922R and what that really is. So let's actually go to the U.S. code, and 922R says, it shall be unlawful for any person to assemble from imported parts any semi-automatic rifle or any shotgun which is identical to any rifle or shotgun prohibited from importation under section 925D3 of this chapter, as not being particularly suitable for or readily adaptable to sporting purposes, except that this subsection shall not apply to the assembly of any such rifle or shotgun for sale or distribution by a licensed manufacturer to the United States or any department or agency thereof, or to any state or any department, agency, or political subdivision thereof, or the assembly of any such rifle or shotgun for the purposes of testing or experimentation authorized by the Attorney General. So they're pretty much saying that you cannot take imported parts and build a gun that would be prohibited from importation. Well, there's a real interesting thing that is not in this statute. Now, once again, I am not an attorney, so please don't take anything I say as legal advice. But if you notice in this statute, it doesn't say anything from possession or about possession. It says you can't assemble. Now, it is my understanding for a couple things. Nobody has ever been tried and arrested based on solely 922R compliance. It has never happened. I know there's a lot of legal people out there that have looked. Now, it has been an add-on charge to other things. Let's just say that somebody illegally owned a machine gun, and they get them on 922R as well, just to throw on as many charges as possible. There has never been a case where an ATF officer was at the range, looked at your gun and said, I need you to disassemble that, and you have to prove to me where every single component of that gun came from. Because many times, it's absolutely impossible. So you have things in this gun like the hammer, the disconnector, the sear, the base plate, the follower. They're not marked with the countries of origin. There's nothing on them. And the burden of proof when it comes to your prosecution is on the federal government, not on you to defend yourself. So they have to prove that everything in there is an imported part, but not everything is marked. And how can they tell, oh, that type of steel is only made in Germany? They can't do that kind of stuff. So it's one of those things that they really don't enforce. This is something that deals more with the importers and the sellers than it does you. Now, there's also something that I always tell people when they ask me about 922R compliance. I say, don't ask, don't tell. I know there's a lot of people out there that have no idea what 922R is because it's never really enforced and not really enforced, again, on private citizens. So there are a lot of people out there that would buy a gun like an HK, SP5K, and they Form 1 it and they SBR it. Now, they don't know anything about changing the parts. Now, I do. And there's plenty of companies out there that make US made parts that they will mark them with US if you so want to. Now, I say if you want to remain in compliance, do it. I also find it funny that many of the people that are like, I won't comply, all of a sudden care about 922R. Well, if you don't comply, why are you caring about 922R? But that's a whole nother thing. Now, there's this whole list of parts that a gun can't be assembled from if, meets a certain number, like barrels, bolts, trunnions, hammer, disconnector, magazine follower, magazine base plate, and so forth. You guys can go find out all of the information. And often it is very easy to make your gun 922R compliant. I mean, the magazine itself counts as 3 parts if you change the barrel or whatever. Now, as I said, I don't think if you have a non-922R compliant firearm, the ATF is ever going to find out and nobody will care. Local law enforcement officers, who by the way cannot enforce the NFA, they have no idea about 922R and no one has ever been brought up on it. And there's a lot of people out there fear-mongering saying, well, if you try to amnesty register a foreign gun, which this one is not, they're going to say it doesn't meet 922R. You have to come and turn it in and destroy it. If that was such an issue, why wouldn't the ATF be worried about all of the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of SBRs that are made from imported receivers? I can't tell you how many people probably have HK MP5 clones made from foreign parts. They're like, okay, you filled out the form, thank you. They expect you to follow 922R compliance. Just filling out the form doesn't mean they have the right to come and inspect your gun. And they're not going to. Just don't commit an illegal act with it. Now, as I said, depends on if you want to comply or not. But that's what 922R is. And see what else I wrote about it. Okay, and I also think that the ATF is scaring you to destroy your gun or turn it in. It is just like the bump stock ban. You guys remember when the Donald Trump administration banned bump stocks? The ATF said you have 2 options. You can either turn them in or destroy them. Well, I heard that about 12 people turned them in. But it's common knowledge that there were probably about 800,000 of these things in circulation. So did all those people destroy them? Well, I know people that own bump stocks. I don't ask them what they did with it. I haven't seen them with it. Did they destroy them? Maybe. Maybe not. I don't know. It's none of my business. But what do you guys think? The ATF said you had to get rid of them. You had to destroy them. Have proof. Did they care? No. So when it comes to this, they just want you to turn in the gun or destroy it. So once again, you can comply, and those are the options that they say they give you, but to me, it's a bunch of fear-mongering on the side of the ATF. So that's my thoughts on 922R compliance, because possession is not a crime. It's the assembling of the gun that is the crime. So if you can prove, if you ever got brought up on these charges, that you did not assemble the firearm, you can't be held liable for that crime. Because as I read to you, 922R only deals with the assembly, not the possession. All right, now let's talk about people that say the amnesty is not legal. They have no right to do an amnesty. Well, in the 1968 Gun Control Act, which did amend the 1934 National Firearms Act, Congress authorized the Attorney General in their capacity of overseeing the NFA to offer amnesties from time to time in 90-day increments. Now, they've really only done one specific one that was kind of a general amnesty back in 1968. They never did another one, although they are authorized. But in the past, there have been other amnesties, like in the 1990s when they determined that the street sweeper revolving cylinder shotgun was a destructive device. They allowed for the amnesty registration of those firearms. We have a history of amnesty registrations that went off without a hitch. Nobody was entrapped. No, there was no type of weird enforcement mechanism where they were trying to get people. They just amnesty registered these firearms. Whether or not you agree with it or think there should be amnesties, that's not what we're talking about. But they do have the authority to allow for amnesties. It is in the 1968 Gun Control Act, and you guys can go check that out. So before you say they can't do it, yes, they can. It is in law. Just because they don't do it very often doesn't mean they can't. Now, A lot of people were talking about the issue with self-incrimination. I can't tell you how many people were talking about this 88-day delay or denial, and it's an auto-denied, and then they're going to come to your house once again, burn it down, kill you, kill your family, and kill your dog. However, there's a really interesting thing that is in the 1968 Gun Control Act when it pertains to the registering of NFA firearms, and it is 26 U.S. Code 5848, and it's titled The Restrictive Use of Information. Now remember, this deals specifically with the attempted registration of an NFA firearm. It says, as a general rule, no information or evidence obtained from an application, registration, or records required to be submitted or retained by a natural person in order to comply with any provision of this chapter or regulations issued thereunder shall, except as provided in subsection B of this section, be used directly or indirectly as evidence against that person in a criminal proceeding with respect to a violation of law occurring prior to or concurrently with the filing of the application or registration or the compiling of records containing the information or evidence. And that exemption is the furnishing of false information. So if you do lie on the form, you can be held criminally liable. However, if you try to comply with the law, they cannot use that against you. They can't come to your house and say, we now know you have this. You have to turn it in. It is in law. Once again, it is U.S. Code 265848. They cannot use any information that they have on you if you submit a registration, whether that be tax paid, not tax paid, if it's an Amnesty registration, against you for any criminal matter that they could investigate. So just the fact that you submit the form, even if in some weird turn of events you get denied or it goes over this magical 88 days after they do some criminal background check on you, which by the way we'll talk about in a moment, they cannot come to your house, they cannot arrest you, they can't ask you about the gun. You are protected by the 1968 Gun Control Act when it comes to these records and forms. So you are not self-incriminating yourself by submitting these forms. And by the way, something that a lot of people do not understand about the NFA, there is only one organization that is allowed to enforce it, and that is the ATF. Because the ATF is a tax collecting entity and the NFA is a tax regulation, your forms are tax returns. So the local sheriff, the local police, they cannot enforce the NFA. Now, they can arrest you in conjunction with things, but they all have to turn all of that over to the ATF. But they're not going to do that. They're not out there trying to enforce the NFA because it's a federal law, it's a tax issue. In fact, the only person, and it says on all of your NFA forms, the only person that you have to show the forms to upon request, not the firearm, only the forms, is an ATF officer because they are a tax enforcement officer and that form is legally a tax return. Only the ATF can enforce the NFA. So let's also talk about this 88 days. And everyone was saying, oh my gosh, if I Amnesty register this and if 88 days go by and it's auto-denied, they come to your house, and I know it seems like a little trope right now. Oh my God, they're gonna burn down your house, kill you, kill your family, and kill your dog. No, they're not, because it clearly says that if you are denied for any reason, especially for like typographical reasons, you have 60 days to reapply. But also, this background check, number one, is only for the NICS system. So if you go to your local gun store and you get a delay, not a denial, a delay, the gun store can give you the gun and sell you the gun after 3 days. That is federal law. However, after 88 days, they close the case. Even if they have no idea and came to any type of conclusion on you, because they're only allowed to hold records for 90 days. So they just close the case. There's no action. They don't call the gun store back and say, oh my gosh, you got to get the gun back. They just close the case unless it comes back as a denial. Now, when it comes to the NFA system, if that's the case, it comes back as delayed and there's no action. It just gets closed and you have 60 days to resubmit the application. They're not going to come and arrest you. And by the way, delays are very rare. 99% of all background checks, as long as you know you don't have anything in your background, they're going to come back as proceed, which means it can go through. And then there's, of course, the few that are denied. The delays usually get resolved within 3 days. But this background check process with the NFA does not begin when you submit the form. It begins when the investigator, or I guess in this case the examiner, would look at your form and enter your information into the system. So let's just say it takes them 120 days to get to your application. Well, you weren't auto-denied after 88 days. Now this timer would start. And as long as you don't have any type of delay in the NICS system, you're going to be absolutely fine. Now, trust me, many of these stamps took me over a year to get. So if it was auto-denied after 88 days, I wouldn't have any of these. And this is going to be the same process as regular NFA forms. So a lot of times this is fear-mongering by people that have never done anything when it comes to the NFA before. Okay, so I think I've covered most of the fear-mongering stuff, and now I want to get to the frequently asked questions that I got a lot in the comments from people that have never done this before. We got a, how do I fill out a Form 1? Jason, can you make a video? Well, there's already lots of videos out there, and I'm going to reference those because those are a lot better. I don't have screen capture software on my computer, and if I did, you would get all of my personal information because you would see all of that on my Form 1s. However, I believe Silencer Shop has some information. Just YouTube or Rumble, Form 1, how to fill out. You'll find plenty of great resources. Also, the ATF has a section on this on their website going step by step on what to enter. And I will try to put all of this information, including the laws that I have referenced, in the description. So go down there and check that out. People have asked me about photos and fingerprints. Oh my gosh, I have to go get passport photos and my fingerprint card's done. Well, you can do that. However, when it comes to e-forms, you can upload your own picture. Just make sure that you can take it on your cell phone and make sure it is a 1-by-1 picture, and make sure that you crop it, that it looks good, has a neutral background. Don't make it like something that you took off of Facebook, like you standing against the wall or something with nothing else behind you. A 1-by-1, make sure your full picture is in there, and you can upload that on the e-form system. And when it comes to the fingerprint system, there are some places that can scan your fingerprints and give you, I believe it's called an ETF file. I can't remember what the actual nomenclature is for it, but a lot of places do it. And you can submit that as well. There's a place on the e-form system that you can upload that. So if you live in a place where you can go and get your fingerprints electronically scanned, some places do it for background checks for employment and such. Some gun shops now have it because the e-form system is so prevalent. You can go get electronic fingerprints. But if you don't want to do that, when you fill out the Form 1, they will email you a cover sheet, and you can go down to your local gun store, pick up one of these fingerprint cards. Maybe they can do them for you, or you got to go down to the police station and do it, and you can submit them by the mail. You have to include the cover sheet with 2 of these fingerprint cards, but most people should just do the electronic ones. That's the easiest way to do it. And I believe it came down to one other thing. Oh yes, the engraving. People were asking me, Jason, if I Amnesty register my pistol, do I have to create my own serial number? No, you just enter the information that is on the receiver. The receiver's serial number is the serial number. You don't create your own. You don't have to engrave your own. The only thing that you will have to engrave, which is part of the NFA law, is either your individual name, if you did it as an individual, or your trust's name. So let's just say I'm making this up. This isn't the name of my trust, but Texas Gun Vault Trust, and the city in which you're located in. So if I was a trust, it would be Texas Gun Vault Trust, and let's just say it would be middle of nowhere, Texas. And then if I was an individual, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, which obviously that's not my real name, middle of nowhere, Texas. And that's what you have to engrave. And there's many places that do laser engraving to ATF spec. So there's actually a rule regarding that, but most gun shops can refer you to some place that can do it if they can't do it themselves. And I think that covers everything. Now I know, as again, some people out there are saying I'm an absolute idiot for doing this. I'm not going to comply. I want you guys to know that I think that you are big boys and big girls. I respect your decisions. And I am doing this for educational purposes only. If it goes great, I'm going to let you know. You can still not comply, but at least you have that data point. If it goes neutral, where I have some problems, I will report back to you as well. You can go, well, I can prepare for that or not prepare for that, or I'm going to completely avoid it. You have that data point. Or if it goes horrifically wrong and you see me getting dragged out in a body bag and my whole house is burnt down and my dog is dead, you guys go, I better not comply. Well, now you actually have the information. You're just not listening to some guy, some fearmonger that has a YouTube channel that interviewed an ATF officer at SHOT Show and now started to panic. And by the way, always remember that I know the video a lot of people reference when it comes to this 88-day rule. The person that was speaking from the ATF was a law enforcement officer. Always remember, law enforcement is allowed to lie to you. And law enforcement officers don't always have all the correct information. We see it all the time where police officers arrest people for breaking the law when they actually didn't break the law because they don't know the law. But once again, police officers are allowed to lie to you. You just can't lie to them, especially in the course of an investigation. So that's why you should never talk to a law enforcement officer. Never believe anything they have to say, regardless of how nice they are or what they're talking about. And anytime you have an interaction, if at all possible, have legal counsel. If they want to question you, go, I'm happy to comply, but I need to talk to my legal counsel first. And don't believe anything that they say. If they come to your door saying, hey, we think a guy across the street is not complying with this pistol brace rule, what do you know? They might not actually be investigating that guy. They could be investigating you. They're allowed to lie to you. So don't trust anything that they say. I am asking you, as big boys and big girls, go out there and get all of the correct information that you can find. Or all, I shouldn't say correct information, but all the information you can find. The pros and the cons. Listen to the lawyers. Listen to the YouTubers. Listen to your friends. Listen to the gun shop owner. Get all of the information. Most importantly, do your own research. I'm going to put links to almost everything I talked about here in the description below. Go check it out. Do not believe me. Go investigate for yourself and then be informed and make the best decision for you. But don't panic. The moment you panic and go from the heart, you're going to make a bad decision. Because remember, what you decide to do here, depending on how this goes down, could really negatively affect your life if you make the wrong decision. And I want you guys to make the right decisions for you. And the last thing I want to say is I am almost 100% certain this is going to get overturned in the courts. So if I started to Amnesty register this thing and it gets overturned in the courts, will my tax stamp come back? I don't know. But I'm not out anything. And people are like, oh my gosh, no, the ATF knows what you have. Need I remind you, I have about 40 tax stamps. So I'm pretty sure the ATF knows I have a sizable collection of firearms. So yeah. And I guess one more thing I want to say that I did get asked is what happens to people that live in states where they're allowed to own pistols, but they're not allowed to own NFA items? And the answer is, I have no idea. I live in the free state of Texas, so this isn't an issue for me, but I think this is going to be the grounds to really help us get this rule overturned because it really negatively affects people in those states. So that's what I think is going to happen, what I think about all this, what I know about the rules, asking you guys, do not panic, answering all of the frequently asked questions. And so you can love me, you can hate me, whatever, but just remember the rules. Don't call me a name, but you are more than welcome to disagree. So I hope this answered some questions. I hope some of you guys are looking forward to what the results are, as am I. And I'm looking forward to having a good discussion in the comments, okay? I know this has been a long video. I'm doing this kind of off the cuff with a little bullet point script. So yeah, it is what it is. So I hope some people found this entertaining, enlightening, or whatever. But I will keep you updated depending on what happens to this. So just keep following the news, see if this thing gets overturned in the courts. We just don't know. But I'm here to help you make the best decision possible. So let me know what you think in the comments section below. And as always, thanks for watching.